Take us away.
Hey. Well, welcome to episode 2 of Webcomicast.
Hello there, everyone.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes, I'm Martin Ferguson.
My name is Adam Cowie.
Yeah. And if you skipped the first one, hard to blame you. Basically, this is...
Sorry.
Basically, this is just a show where we talk about various webcomics, just give, not really reviews, just analysis, just have a conversation about them.
You know, you saw
like
that?
some positives, negatives, things we took from them and making our own comments, just that kind of thing.
Right. It's very, very casual and very retrospective and just looking back. And again, if you missed the first episode, we are talking now about Wotch, because there's a lot to say about it.
Yes, and right from the get-go, I would just like to throw out here, I know in certain circles, certain review circles, the Wotch gets a lot of hate. If that's what you're expecting here, that's not what you're going to get.
No, we love this comic.
Yeah.
Not that there isn't a lot of bad stuff to talk about, and believe me, we will.
I don't know how well it would hold up if I really went back and reread it now.
Yeah.
But I see some good things in the comic, and we'll be giving it some good, some bad, whatever.
Yeah, and the comic had a big influence on us for the comics that we write, especially me in writing Blue Blood Heroes, which we should all write. And if you don't know, we are webcomic writers and artists. Martin is the creator of 2 webcomics.
Light Princess.
Right, and I am the creator of Blue Blood Heroes.
Which and we will go ahead, and we'll reiterate, we stressed this in the first episode, we'll reiterate it here. We're not claiming to be experts. No.
Oh, God,
far
no.
from it. We're a couple of amateurs stumbling our way through figuring everything out, and just the things we've learned from reading comments and writing comments, drawing comments, all that, we're just using to discuss comments.
Right. And if you have your own opinion, let us know. So,
okay.
The comic...
No. Sorry. I was saying, and apologies for any technical issues or stumbling over each other's words like that. So, yeah, we're amateurs on this thing, too.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. So yes, Wotch. Wotch is best described as a transformation comic. It's a webcomic about the creation about how far you have to get to the okay. It's a webcomic about let's just say magical girls, and shit, I'm doing a bad job explaining these as well.
Yeah. Specifically, the Wotch is about a girl who receives powers receives a position as like an especially powerful witch known as the Wotch, and it's essentially just her struggles and the hijinks she gets into.
I would argue that's missing the point. It's not really about her.
Yeah,
it's about 2 friends, Robin and Jason, who meet a new student at their school. And the student is revealed to actually have magical powers. She's not a witch, she's a Wotch.
Yes, and probably gets the most screen time but not for any real reason, but then we'll get to that.
Yeah. But the story is just about the 3 of them going on various magical adventures.
Yes. Okay, and I suppose at that point we should get into talking about the cast a little bit more.
Yes, that segues very nicely into cast. Obviously we have the 3 main heroes here, and the Wotch herself, Robin, the our kind of sort of lead, who mostly the comic's more of a magical girlfriend is the trope name, I think.
Kind of. It's sort of that combined with an ensemble.
Yeah. Sort of every man who's involved with it, and Jason, who's, I hesitate to use the word comic relief. He's something. He's comic relief, but he's not in like a goofy, bumbling way. He's dry, sarcastic, and doesn't like. He's kind of oftentimes he's sort of the comic's Greek chorus. I actually do not know what that means.
Basically, it just means he comments on the action, just like weighs in on things, judges the characters around him, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yes, we have those 3. We have those 3.
And outside of that, the comic has a big cast.
Oh yes, and it's a very memorable cast too. A lot of it is they are very striking, very at once immediately visible.
Yes, and
you have Ivan, who's an investigative reporter on the school newspaper who accidentally winds up trying to uncover Anne. You You have Cassie, a goth girl who winds up as a...
We'll talk more about Cassie later.
Oh, yes, definitely. Who winds up as sort of a potential rival in terms of magical power. Her brother Anne's brother / sister Evan. Yes, we're not in Russia, no.
Yes, Evan, essentially, his role's a little complicated to explain.
Where the fuck
but
is
it
the
ties
characters section? Where the fuck is
I don't think they've ever had one, actually.
No, it had one. It's... Oh, okay. That's... Huh. Anyway, moving on.
Yes. Oh, well, actually, I was wanting to explain Evan.
Oh, right, yes.
Okay. Evan is a good starting point to explain one of the big gimmicks with the comic, which is in many ways a detriment, but then we'll get to that.
Detachable penises.
Yes, more or less, because Evan is largely a post-college-ish, it's kind of vague, like adult who Anne lives with, but he has this hobby of unwinding by turning into a 4-year-old girl.
Yes, that's...
Which, just go ahead and let that sink in.
The gimmick for a lot of the stories is that Anne's main power is to transform people into other creatures, either primarily all female, or the opposite
turning
gender.
Turning people into girls, turning people into animals, turning people into having different colored hair, solving bodies. Pretty much she'll do all that.
And they almost always invariably involving switching genders.
Yes.
And even then, almost universally male to female, which we'll discuss later. But if that's kind of thing is like a problem, you're not gonna. I think that's the main reason the comic gets a lot of hate is that does turn a lot of people off. Yes,
that, and I'll go ahead and acknowledge it right now. In many ways, it is a ripoff of Elder and Shive.
I didn't start reading the two of them until they were coming out around the same time, so I can't really weigh in on that. I don't know which one came out first.
Elder and Shive came out several years first. But,
I'm sorry, go on.
But they're not the same. If you only read the one, if you only read EGS, tonally and the way they have to do things are really not the same. It's just they have the same concept of this big, diverse cast who just have random transformation stuff built around them and a premise largely built around making that happen.
Yeah, it's a good sum up. Yes, and anyway, the cast is very large. The cast is very colorful, very memorable, and moving on then.
Yes,
I'm drawing, as we do this, I'm going to be drawing characters from the comic, starting with Anne herself.
Yes, and also, if you listen to the Miss Foster and you're noticing a little difference here, we're working with something of a template this time, at least just to keep us focused and know where to go next, as opposed to all the awkward stammering and stuff we had that first time.
That, and I also kept talking about Evangelion.
Yeah, and Dragon Ball Z.
Well, I was playing with the Dragon Ball Z toy I got for Christmas, so...
Yeah. At least I was able to tie both back into the comic, and we probably will be talking about... probably will be talking about other stuff as it relates to this, because a big part of this whole project of ours is seeing how these comics relate not only to others, but just storytelling in general.
Yes, yes. Speaking on how this comic relates to us, this comic had a very, very big influence on my work on Blues.
Yes,
you see,
it's easy to take... No, you were saying?
The comic is very obvious. Now, notice how I'm looking at covers. Now, even though the comic is not in print, or... I don't think did they ever do print versions of this? I don't think they ever did.
They kept teasing it, but they never actually did it.
Yeah, even though it technically didn't have any reason for it to do this, it still went on to it. And the thing was, the comic is very much not structured like a webcomic. It's structured like a print comic, Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or any of those. And you can tell reading it that they took a lot of influence from print comics.
Yeah, that's one big thing, and also just one thing the comic is good at is it's a good example of how to properly pace a story that is, how to put this, it's ongoing. There is a connecting plot, but a lot of it's episodic and has little side stuff that doesn't entirely relate.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up Blues for a moment. Blues also has a thing where it is very, very episodic, and it is very much structured not like a webcomic, but like a print comic in like every practical sense. And I took that from Wotch. Reading Wotch made me realize, well, it doesn't have to be something like various other webcomics I'm doing it. I can structure it more like a print comic, and I can aim for that instead of
Yeah, it was one of several things that pushed me in a similar direction.
Yeah.
Because around the time I first started reading Wotch, which was one of the first comics I started following, the kind of stuff I was reading was mostly like joke comics. Like the most plotty thing I was reading was probably 8-Bit Theater.
Yeah. And even then...
We might come back to that.
Yeah, and even that's a very farcy plot.
Yes.
Farcy, is that a word? Farcical.
Well, it is, but it's the name of a language.
Farcical. Adjective of farce.
It's a farce.
Yes.
Yes, so it was one of several comments that got me thinking in similar ways, which another one of those, I'm going to go ahead and bring it up just because I'll be touching on it again a little later briefly. Anti-Hero for Hire.
Yeah.
Because it had a similar sort of structure, and like those two, and Venus Envy and just some other things I started reading around at the same time, had a certain influence on how I structured comics and what made me want to do it.
Yeah. Wotch is very, very good at that. It's very episodic, which again is something we try to do Blues especially tries to do, and it also had that influence of having like a really tight, memorable cast.
Yes, and one good thing about Wotch is, for the most part, you can dive in at any point and not be too lost.
Yeah, it's not, and that's something that a lot of webcomics do, is that they get very muddled very quickly, which we
know we're not the best at that.
No, but God no. But we try to keep it under control. You can get the gist from Wotch very easily because it's kind of simple, and it's kind of almost childishly simple in a way, and I mean that in a good way.
Yes.
In like a Hayao
Any child
Miyazaki
can
way.
rip off Buffy.
What's that?
I said any child can rip off Buffy.
Take that, Joss Whedon.
Yes, that's one thing that does bear mentioning, that yes, Wotch's basic plot is pretty directly lifted straight from Buffy, and it doesn't hide it.
Adam doesn't watch the show, so Adam doesn't care.
Yeah, well, it does do that same thing of like having this like chosen special magical girl who like passes the power on to other girls and then like mentors them, and yeah. Oh wait, no, they don't mentor them directly. The Slayers only lose it when they die. But whatever.
Okay. But
but still. Yeah, and it has the dark counterpart with the same powers and all that thing.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Like, dear God, we'll come back to that.
Yeah. This actually segues into another point we want to talk about, the positives, and those are all very positive. These are all. It's a very nicely written comic. The characters are likable. The plot is accessible and makes a lot of sense.
The characters are okay. You may notice looking around, especially at these earlier pages, which are what we are showing off.
Yeah, we're starting with the Earth pages. I mean,
yeah, you might notice that the art is pretty simple, but the characters are identifiable.
Right.
Like it is quite good at that. So that's one thing that's favoring that relates to the fact that the cast is good. Like there are a lot of random extras who don't even appear that often, but they have good enough designs and just enough personality and stuff that you're interested in seeing more of them.
Yeah, the artwork is very simple.
Yes.
Again, it's almost childishly simple, but we mean that in kind of a good way.
It fits the tone of the comic, and the art gets better as the comic goes.
Yeah. Well, as you do.
Yes. I mean, yeah, there aren't many comics that get worse as they go.
Sadly,
I mean, there are some, but
I mean, Peanuts got worse as it went along, but the guy was really, really old by the time that was happening.
yeah. Well, I said on the last one I actually preferred the early pages of Misfall Bars, but I'm sure I'm kind of in the minority on that.
Yeah, poor Charles Schulz.
Yeah, why are you listening to us? Go read Peanuts, everybody.
Yeah, go read fucking Peanuts. Watch Snoopy fucking dance. Yeah. Okay.
So relating to that cast thing, like the comic is good about that. Like, for example, like one character who's pretty instantly identifiable is somebody whose entire joke is like the entire joke in the main comic is that they're constantly being tripped in the spinoff.
Yeah, like an invisible person keeps sticking out their foot and tripping her.
Yes.
You still
and
really
this is a spinoff, and yet it works into the main story.
Yeah, you still really remember her. Like looking back, we went through and we flipped through the comic again before doing this, and I forgot just how much I remembered all of these characters.
Yes.
With very little.
There are certain exceptions, of course, like this one football player who's actually fairly prominent, who I cannot tell you a thing about.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
But there are there's certainly pluses. Like for instance, and this deserves her own little section here. That Cassie girl we mentioned.
Cassie, yes, I'm going to be drawing her later. By the way, I've had a lot of practice with her.
Yes.
People have paid me to draw her. Yeah. And doesn't that sound creepy?
Yes. Well, people have also paid you to draw in. So, yes, the thing with Cassie is she's not an extra, or she's not even a supporting character. She's the main character, but like kind of a lesser grade than the other three, at least initially.
Yeah. It kind of feels a lot like she got expanded because she was very, very popular.
Yes, like from the get-go, you could tell things were going somewhere with her, but yes,
not the direction they wound up going in.
Yes, and Cassie's probably the most interesting, like, complex character. It has like she's flawed, and the comic explores that, which. Yeah, the comic exploring flaws is kind of a rarity. We'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
And like she's just like just everything about her just works the best. Like if she's in a fight scene, it's probably gonna be the best fight scene you're gonna see for a while. Just like if she has a subplot in a comic or in a chapter, it's probably going to be better than the main plot.
Yeah. Like, and you can sort of wonder, like, was it intended to go this way, or is she just accidentally wind up being the most interesting character?
I do know one thing that kind of deserves some credit, but at the same time maybe some scorn relating to that, is that most of the cast is based off of various friends of the creator and stuff. Cassie is not.
That does explain a lot.
They said that she's like explicitly made up from scratch.
Yeah, that does explain a lot.
Yes,
because there are a lot of stories where like the cast is made up of like people that the writer knows. I mean, like Watership Down did that, and it's actually Watership Down's not a good example because the cast in that that's largely driven by plot, not by cast. But I don't know where I'm going with this. Martin, help me.
Yes. Well, it does make you wonder if perhaps part of the reason she's like the most interesting character is just because maybe she was maybe the author was more willing to explore flaws in her and character growth and stuff than in others.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's because that is what made her interesting. She was easily the most flawed character in the series.
Well, that's treated as flawed.
Yeah, that's not treated as a villain, right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and she's, I don't know, it's hard to really sell her. You just have to read her stuff, but she's sort of a dark counterpart to Anne, but not really. She's kind of more of an unknown rival.
Yeah, which in itself is almost more infuriating than being a rival.
Yes, and she kind of has this struggle where she likes Anne as a person, but she resents things about her.
Yeah, and again, you kind of just have to read her. She is probably, we're listing positives, and she's the only character on her own that we list as that.
Yes.
She's just an interesting character.
Let's see. While we're speaking on positives here, speaking of the covers, the commentary is quite good at those.
Yes, it is kind of like the thing where like you can hear Linkara coming in like the cover is wonderful. We have it's striking and blah blah blah. And I can't do an impression of him. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I thought you got the basic voice down, just not the tone.
Yeah, his tone is like his tone eludes me.
Yeah. I think it's because he's always shouting.
Yeah, I can't shout. I can't.
Yeah. Okay, so the covers, like we mentioned, the art isn't always the best, but the covers are like well done compositionally, and like they're usually done in such ways like make you interested in what's in the comic.
Yeah, and that is again why we started doing it in our own comics. Is it's really enticing, and plus, even if it's something that never happens, which you do with comics a lot. It really entices you and it just gives you a chance to do like some really great, really fascinating imagery.
Yes, and covers can kind of impact your enjoyment. Like, to bring the anti-hero for hire back up. For a long while, it did very basic covers. What they'd do is they'd just be black and show an item from the chapter on the cover. Which at least, it's usually just some random thing, like a cup of coffee or something, but at least got you interested.
Yeah, and
eventually they dropped that, and admittedly, I lost some interest when they did that.
Yeah. Like, it is something fascinating that does entice you in ways you wouldn't expect.
Yes, it's a good way of, and this goes for webcomics, print comics, especially print comics.
Oh yeah, I've been reading a Batman collection, and I've been paying attention to just how good a lot of the covers are. Like, the collection I have is about the Joker. Like, there's one of the covers is just like a silhouette of Batman's head, and like you can see like the Joker squatting inside of it. It's a really minimalist, really kind of creepy image.
Yes, a good thing about covers, something they're very good for, and I think a lot of people overlook in doing webcomics, is a cover can instantly kind of lure you in and give you a taste of what the chapter is going to be like.
Yeah, and not just like through content, but through atmosphere and mood.
Yes, it's strange how few comics I see that really do that.
Yeah.
Okay, Misfile comes to mind. Like, it has covers. It's just all of them are. Most of the covers are either saved for the book release and not shown before that, or they are. Where was it? Oh yeah, right. Or like at the end, after each book, at the start of the next one, they just have a white page with a picture and some text on it, which is always the same text. Which is like, it's a good little buffer thing, but it doesn't tell you anything about what's coming up.
Yeah. And for webcomics, not doing that comes off as kind of lazy, because people expect something from you on a schedule.
Yeah. As much as I praise it, Jonathan Court kind of. Nah, it does the anti-hero for hire thing where it's black, but it shows like one image of what's coming. Usually just a panel listed from the comic, it seems. Okay, so to probably come up with more positives, but I think we kind of hit the main gist of it, Oh, actually, no, we can go ahead and mention one more thing. One thing the comic is quite good at is those individual stories are like the individual episodic chapters that usually don't connect much to anything, are usually like the most entertaining part about it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into why exactly that is. But the individual stories work as very interesting, self-contained stories. Well, not entirely self-contained, but because there was an overarching...
there's continuity and things that come back and all that. It's just like typically one of them is just kind of a one and done. This stuff happens in this chapter, then it's resolved.
Yeah. And again, a lot of webcomics get like really complicated and really like, kind of biting with the plot.
Yes. And a lot of the time, the comic just has a sense of fun about it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying it never takes itself seriously. It does. And sometimes it works.
Sometimes it doesn't, but you need to have a sense of fun.
Yes. And especially with that premise, it's just like, you know, if you have somebody flinging spells around, they're basically a physical god, yes, there should be some fun to that. So, a significant chunk of the comic is just seeing what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the negatives, because oh wait, are we done on positives, do you think?
I think we've hit the gist of it. I could probably come up with more stuff. I think we've hit all the main high notes.
I don't think I can come up with any more stuff, so.
I mean, I think if I racked my brain, I'd come up with something, but I think we hit the gist of it.
I think if we're at that point, then yeah, we should move on.
Okay. Okay, this is going to sound, again, we're kind of endorsing the comic, but this is going to sound kind of bad, but we have a lot of negatives.
Oh, yes. Oh, God. Oh, fuck. Where do we start? Oh, wait, no, I know exactly where... I think we should...
what were you saying?
I know where to start, because this is something I do want to complain about, and it kind of segues from one of the positives we were bringing up earlier.
Okay.
The episodic structure of the comic is very... The episodic structure of the comic does keep it very neat. It's very tidy. Nothing really spills over so much and gets convoluted like a lot of the other comics. I think it lends itself to being very predictable, though. Like, I at no point in reading the comic was ever surprised at anything that happened.
Yes. There are a couple of times, like, a chapter might have gone on longer than expected, and sometimes the chapter's pacing could be pretty bad. Like, just at times. Like, okay, one particular example is a chapter where it's like the core problem is basically all but resolved and everything is looking fine, and then suddenly, at what feels like the very end of the chapter, it just introduces a villain for that chapter and just keeps going.
I think I know what you mean, but yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, you know the one. Okay, if you notice, we're kind of trying to avoid the spoilers a little more than we did with Mistfall. Like, we warned about it on Mistfall, and we didn't go too much into detail on anything.
Well, one of the bullet points is kind of gonna... Actually, two of the bullet points are kind of gonna involve spoilers, so...
Yeah, just fair warning that from here it will get a little iffier. Okay, on the other negatives, this...
hang on.
This isn't too... okay.
No, keep going.
Okay, this isn't too big a deal, honestly, especially because they really only do it during, like, filler scenes. But the comic has a huge lack of background. Like, I mean, it's probably a consequence of how many panels there are per page, because their pages are busy. But oftentimes you will just have people standing in front of, like, a swirling yellow vortex that's supposed to be Anne's living room wall or something.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, like look at the page I just brought up. See, there is no. Yeah, it's just blank.
Yes.
In every single panel. Wow. Although again, for this sort of thing, this has 3, 7, 10, 14 panels on this page, and that can be hard to do. That's
yeah.
Like
and how many heads is that? Because that
1, 2, 3,
I'd even
4.
buy more like busy pages. That would be
4, 8, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 32, 35, 37, 40, 43. Yeah, 43. God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a point in time when I was putting out pages that, had 43 heads in them and was doing it 3 times a week.
Oh, yeah. For us, that's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And also, for something I'm noticing right now and talking about that, like I'm only just noticing, is that the framing of these is very weird in that this is something I've only just started to fix in Blues, is that the characters are way too big for the panel, so there's no room to put a background.
Yes.
And that's just something
I think part of that does come from the simplistic art.
Yeah, yeah. And
like a lot of their movement is like very blocky in general, and that takes up more space.
Yes. Wait, what is?
Like whenever the characters are more blocky and just kind of limited in their movement, it takes up more space.
Yeah.
So, and relating to that, I suppose this might as well mention this now. The schedule, like if you're interested in picking up this comic and starting to read it right now, based on what we've been saying and what we will say, go ahead. Just be aware you're probably never going to get a conclusion.
I think it's more or less can be considered dead.
Yes, it still updates rarely, mostly like filler and stuff, but the comic schedule got pretty wonky there for a while, and then it changed artists.
And before we start sounding judgmental, the reason it got kind of wonky is that the creator went through a very, very messy divorce.
Yes. Like, yes, and that's fine. It's just, like, it's understandable. It's just, as a reader, you should know about it. And, okay, some other negatives. A lot of the time, the characters, like, there's a certain tendency to introduce characters entirely just for the purposes of driving a given, like, set up a given plot point and then never appear again. Or at the very least, like, they'll be set up well in advance for, like, one minor thing, and then just kind of keep appearing and not give you anything to say about them.
Yeah, yeah. I can't think of that many characters offhand that are like that, though. Like,
I can think of that football player and Glock both in the same subplot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And his partner, Murr.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I got the sense they were supposed to come back.
Yeah.
If
like half of the people in Xaos' world, which we'll get to that.
Oh, yes.
As you can presently see on the screen, could see a second ago, the comic does have werewolves and werecats.
Yes. It's hard to really go into that many more negatives without discussing some of the bigger problems with it. Should we talk about...
I would like to try and focus on a few little more minor nitpicks before we start getting into the big stuff, because it's going to dominate most of the rest of this.
Yeah, because are we going to discuss the fan service? Because it didn't bother me that much.
Yeah, that does bear mentioning.
And that's, again, that's one reason I think the Watch gets picked on so much.
Yes, and I don't think it's entirely unreasonable.
No,
a lot of the comic is built around just drawing things for the readers or for the author's amusement.
Yeah, and usually transformation items, which just do. And if you're not into that, it gets really distracting.
Yes, it's like, okay, if you have an outright aversion to the concept, you will not be able to read the comic. If you're just kind of not all that interested in it, you might be able to. But it would probably help to have at least a passing interest.
Yeah, yeah. Because it goes on, because it happens a lot, and often for no reason.
Yeah, like, I don't think it can be like entirely. I don't think it can be entirely explained in words how often this happens in this comic. Like, essentially, if someone does not get transformed at a chapter, it's only because Anne isn't in it. And even then, her not being there isn't necessarily a guarantee that it won't happen.
No, they'll find an excuse. And often very flimsy excuses.
Yes, and there is this certain tendency, like, everyone who has magic uses it for that.
Yeah, like, there's no like, curing disease.
Cassie is the exception. She is the one who's not interested in it.
No wonder she's so interesting.
Yeah, like, her magic thing is, well, I guess in Xaos too, but even he's done it.
That's only because we don't see him that much.
Yeah. Again, we'll get to that. Yeah, so I think we've hit most of the like notable but still kind of minor grievances.
Shit. God damn it! Before we got into fan service, there's something else I wanted to bring up.
Oh.
Yeah, if I have to rack my brain on it, I think it's time we move on.
Did it have something to do with that particular villain you wanted to mention?
What villain? What?
The Unicorn.
Oh, yeah. This is both kind of a plus and a negative because I'm gonna bring up the unicorn, but the comic in general, and this was again something this cast into all of the points that we made up, the cast, the inspiration, the positives, and the negatives. The comic has really, really good villains for the most part, which we'll discuss later. But a lot of the bad guys,
for the most part,
yeah, a lot of the bad guys are very instantly noticeable, memorable. They kind of stand out. But for example, there's this kind of secretary who works for the main villain, and she can control your life by writing it down in her book, like Death Note, except there are other options besides kill.
Yes, and a lot of this stuff is just completely wasted.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like the comics villains, yeah, they're only in one chapter and then it's done. Like there are no recurring bad guys.
Yeah, I didn't think of one. I didn't think of one villain who was introduced as a one-off and came back later.
Yeah, it's like these are really interesting, fascinating problems, and like one I pointed out my brain keeps switching off. When I point out for like the characters are so memorable, and it's similar to print comics. In print comics, you keep using this. When you get a winner villain, you bring him back. You bring him back over and over again. You don't just throw him to the side after the revelation.
Yes, that's something we've kind of largely tried to work out ourselves. That's the problem we've seen in other comics. We've seen other comics avoid it. Which is just like if you have whenever you're coming up with a villain, you should come up with a way to bring them back.
Yeah, and in particular for Blues, when I was starting Blue Blood Heroes, I worked really hard to think of villains that I can use over and over again, and I only have I think a couple that are one and dones for the most part. I try and think of how they can be brought back.
Yes. And credit where it's due, I suppose. The Unicorn has shown up again since. It's just never been. It's never done anything since.
It's just like a minor villain, and this is something that really pissed me off and relates to the whole blasting thing, like how the whole transformation thing. Look at this fucking thing. It has claws. It's got like this long serpentine body. It's got like that split tail thing. It's got the 4 eyes. Yeah. This is a really cool design. I mean, we were bashing not really bashing, but bringing up how simplistic the art was. But this thing looks awesome.
Yeah, it's like that thing works well within limits, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm genuinely kind of jealous of how cool that thing looks. But what does it do when it arrives? When it gets accidentally summoned at a sleepover, you have this badass monster wandering through a suburban neighborhood. What does it do?
Transform people.
It blasts. It shoots from its hands transformation beams. Like,
yes.
Fucking bite somebody! Look at it! It's got claws and teeth, and cut some people up. Like, at the very least, do a werewolf thing where he bites you and you transform from that. Don't have him blast people.
Yeah.
That's like giving a villain a super giant badass warhammer or giant battle axe, and then just having him bash you, headbutt people as an attack.
Yes, it's okay. I understand that they don't really want the comic to be family friendly, and so dashing through people and like cutting them into bloody chunklets isn't going to work. And he's not okay. There's still better ways to use a character like that, and you shouldn't just blow them on a premise that basically any magic user in the series could be doing.
Yeah, why give him?
In fact, several non-magical characters have used on accident.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're on the subject here, this man in purple on the screen.
Oh, right. Hang on, I'll go back.
Who's on there? Saito.
Keep going.
We will also be coming back to him in a minute.
Yeah, well, he's something else that we want to discuss. But yeah, in general, I really liked the villains. I was disappointed at their utilization.
Okay. I think that would make a good way to set into what we were going to talk about next.
Well, wait, are we going with the point that we added or the point that was already there? Well,
I would go with that one next. More natural step, and we can go back to the other thing from there.
You take us away.
Okay. You know how we keep talking about how the villains are really good? There are two exceptions.
Well, technically,
the two main villains. Well, yes, but
yeah,
the main villain is his sidekick. Yes.
The main villain is really bad.
You'll notice we keep calling him Xaos. That's not his name. His name is spelled Xaos. It is pronounced chaos. This is stupid.
Yeah, this is. It's pronounced. They pronounce it in comic as chaos, or you're supposed to.
Yes. Even
the closest I can think of, and I'm not a linguist, so feel free to correct me about this, but in Chinese, in some dialects of Chinese, the X can be pronounced as a CH, but even then, it's a soft CH. It's not a hard CH.
Yes, and
he'd be chaos.
Yeah, and we're not just hung up on his name. We just wanted to lead that as a lead. We just wanted to use that as a lead into what this character's like.
Sauron, but yeah, that's it. Sauron.
Or outright Darth Vader. Because there was one point in time whenever he was saying the "and" might not work for his purposes, but there is another. He said it line for line.
No, Darth Vader didn't say that. That was Yoda.
Okay. Well, I haven't actually seen Star Wars, so whatever. Now, the point is, he's
sorry,
basically a Star
what?
Wars villain. Oh, okay, well, I have. I've seen the first movie, and I saw the second and third as, a kid. I don't remember anything about them. Never got into them.
Okay, I don't know how we can continue after hearing that, because it's like... I have some Star Wars DVDs, and we got the podcast open, and I could put them in, and I could make...
Well, we can come back to that later. But
Jesus,
point is,
man.
Just everything about the guy is just generic mwahaha. Okay, and really, it's not just him. It's not just him. It is everything involving him. Everything around him is the least interesting part of the comic.
Yeah, it's very generic. It's very much just generic evil overlord, kind of like
okay. Like that purple guy we pointed out, the guy who looks like Wario.
He's Desaad.
Yeah, his entire role in the plot is to deliver messages, and to, in the face of everyone saying, "So you're gonna turn on him, right?" To say, "No, I'm not."
Yeah, it's just too really basic, uninteresting. On the whole, it's just a really basic, uninteresting villain, and he's the one that we see over and over again. He's the one that keeps popping up.
He's the main villain. He's the one who has a big mystery around them and all that.
And he gets a lot of plot development and all that stuff. You just don't care, or we didn't. I don't know what the general consensus was among.
From what I saw, it was a very widely shared opinion.
Okay. It was just the least interesting part of the comic, and it kept coming back to that, and that's why, for the most part, it worked as a one-off thing.
Yes, because it would okay, how to put this? It wasn't just that he wasn't very interesting or something. It's like everything around him wasn't interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't well written. It wasn't well scripted. Like his universe. I kind of liked because he's an evil sorcerer overlord. He's Sauron again. He's fucking Sauron, and he lives in an alternate universe and is watching Anne's progress in learning her magical talents.
Felt and in the meantime, he's ruling his kingdom with an iron fist. But the only indication we get of any of this is a group of 6 rebels.
Yeah.
Who are a cat girl who is pretty quickly brainwashed.
No, it wasn't the cat girl. It was the black eyes girl.
Oh, yeah, right.
The cat girl was the general. The lioness.
Okay, yeah. Okay. See, that shows how memorable they are. Okay, so there's Black-Eyed Girl, whose whole role was being brainwashed. Cat Girl, who's like the leader. A pirate. The penguin from those TV dinners.
Okay.
I think there were others. I don't remember them.
There was I like the design of this. No, I shouldn't say that. It was like a Dementor, except he was in a red robe.
Oh yeah, right.
There was some sort of general who's like from the deserts who's. I actually kind of liked the rebels. I thought they were kind of interesting. I just thought
they never do anything.
No, it's like it didn't convey. They didn't convey what it was like in that universe very much. Like, you didn't see that much evidence of the fact that he was an evil overlord, aside from the fact that he looked and dressed like Sauron.
Yes, and
it actually would have been really funny if like when they finally like at the final chapter, it turned out that he was a wise, benevolent ruler, and that they were just terrorists.
Yeah. I don't know. Given how often I've talked about how he wanted to like destroy the world or something. Yeah.
By world, I meant human suffering.
Yeah. And like, okay, with this group though, it's like they have some interesting designs and dynamics and stuff. It's just like we have no idea what their struggle is. We have no idea what they're trying to do, and they don't relate to the main characters at all.
Well, they were going to, but
yeah. There's been like one exception where they sent a couple of vampire assassins who ended up fighting Cassie. And actually never interacted with the main characters.
Yeah. Which, in all fairness, that was pretty clever, I thought.
Yes. Which this again brings us back to how Cassie gets all the most interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And just, yeah. Like, it's just, yeah, Xaos is just this generic villain whose whole thing is that, you know, he has this dark, mysterious past, and like he used to be like the ultimate good, but something awful happens, and now he's like taking out his wrath on the world. And
like, you know, generic evil overlord can be done well, but you need to have like, if anything, we saw him.
You need a reason to care.
Yeah, if anything, like, actually, we saw Sauron Xaos too much. His name, like, we need like when you think about some of the evil overlords who worked, like...
Ozai.
Ozai worked. Ozai had build-up. Like,
him and Ozai aren't that different. It's just Ozai's done well.
Ozai has, like... Yeah, they're both very generic and very plain, but Ozai was, like, built up. You know, you went through all those seasons, like, never seeing the face, and then it turns out he's just a normal-looking guy, and it keeps building and building, and...
Yeah. Also, I'm going to take something back about the covers here just for the fact of using that very obviously live-action backdrop.
I know! I've been noticing that! What the fuck? Thank you! I've been wanting to...
Okay, yes. Go ahead and count that as a negative. Like, I know the later covers knocked that out, but I guess the early ones did that, and I just blocked it out. Or something.
I know, it's like... I didn't realize that until, like, looking back. Like, It's really distracting.
Is that second one from Mortal Kombat?
I want to say... Is it? I haven't played that many of those games. I don't think Honestly, I don't think I've played...
I don't think it actually is, but I think it's from something like it.
It kind of reminds me of... No, it's obviously not Skyrim, because the architecture and layout is much too advanced.
Plus, the game wasn't out yet.
Well, no, obviously not, but I mean, like, the Elder Scrolls games aren't... Their sense of architecture isn't as far in history as this is. This is obviously a couple of centuries later.
Okay, anyway, back onto our point. It's just it's a big consistent thing in comics that, like, if you cut to Xaos, the comic's about to get boring.
Check back in about 2 weeks.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know how much the authors were aware of that, but I was like, he only really appeared like once a chapter or something, but at the same time, it was consistent, and he never contributed anything. Like, there was one time where he showed some actual initiative.
I think that was toward the very, very end, though.
Yeah. Like, he didn't really show up until the end of the chapter, but even then, like, there was one time whenever he actually like got off of his throne.
Again, that can be kind of interesting, but you have to be able to really, know what you're doing with it.
Yes.
Like again, with Sauron in I've actually never read the Lord of the Rings books, but in the film, Sauron was interesting because they sort of built up this presence. You could feel him looming over everything, and to an extent, Ozai did that too. You have to, if anything, we need to see Xaos less so we can build up what a threat. Actually, no, don't cut to Ozai. Don't cut to Xaos when you go into the other world. We cut to the rebels.
Yeah, cut to the rebels or cut to the people carrying out his orders.
Yeah. You can see the effect he has on the world that he's destroying and all of that stuff. Because that's something that the comic did a lot, is that, when you cut, at the end, he would be the instigator for a lot of the plot. He would send something to their world, which would start off that chapter. And then, at the end, it would sort of cut to him, occasionally we would get a shot of him just going, everything is according to plan. Good.
Yes, which...
Good.
One thing I will give credit on that one is that a lot of the stuff he does doesn't seem to actually, be a case of, no matter what she does, I benefit. It's more just he's trying to make her more powerful.
Yeah.
Which is okay, that I can buy. It's weak, but at least, it feels less than drive.
Still, you can't have the guy be responsible for... Well, okay, they didn't, but... When they did enough that it got kind of tiresome. And I honestly don't like that plot very much to begin with.
Each chapter had about a 50-50 chance of being because of him. It's if you didn't directly see the cause of something on the screen, it was his fault.
Yeah.
Okay, and his posse, as it were, was not immune from this whole transformation thing.
Well, that was more fan service.
What?
Well, that was kind of just fan service.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, it's they had the same fascination all the rest of the cast does.
Oh, yeah. It's
we mentioned, the Eurotarn did it. He had, a ninja guy who never, did anything, who had, turned into a woman and become more violent.
Yeah, she was, it was someone who could transform back and forth from man and woman.
Yeah, which I don't recall this ever actually coming up.
Not in relation to the comic, no.
Yeah.
And again, the secretary we mentioned, who's also never did anything, but at least was kind of fun.
Yeah, she especially did nothing.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair on that one, from what I've heard, she was not intended as part of his group, and just somebody threw her in for a filler. They liked the idea and they kept it.
The Miss Brooks of that universe.
Yes. So, actually, the more you look, I think every one of these covers does this live-action thing.
I'm trying not to look because we got to the consequences thing we're going to talk about, and we're talking about that. Actually,
before consequences, let's set into the other thing.
Yeah. I know. I'm just saying, if you're familiar with some of the criticism of the comic, yes, we're talking about that.
Yeah. We're working our way there. Don't worry. Okay, so, and of course, for every bad villain, you need a bad hero.
Good point. This really makes me rethink Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
Because I love Reed Richards. Reed Richards is probably my favorite guy in the Marvel Universe. I hate Dr. Doom. Unrelated, I know, but unfortunate.
Okay, so, you know how we said, Xaos is bland, doesn't really have any real personality? Yeah, same goes for our main character.
Yeah, Anne is actually quite boring.
Yeah, but every now and then she shows some interest in something, but the thing about her is she's only interesting as it relates to other characters. On her own, she has nothing going for her.
Like we said, it's more of a magical girlfriend sort of story.
Yes, as it relates to Robin, she's mostly there to serve as his, him very obviously crushing on her at first.
And
then, as it relates to Jason, she's mostly there for him to snuff, or Dad. as it relates to Cassie, it's just Cassie thinking about her whole like dynamic with her, and otherwise she pays Cassie no mind.
And that's kind of the thing for a lot of this. Like for a lot of the characters, for a lot of Anne's relationships, they're very one-sided. Anne is kind of in a blank slate because she remains completely oblivious, or if she's not oblivious, then she's not saying. Then maybe she just wants to spare his feelings. But either way, she never reacts to Robin having a crush on her. She never reacts to Cassie having a seated hatred and growing rivalry with her.
And it is very rare that there is a chapter that is actually directly her fault, which is just weird whenever you have this whole rookie magician thing.
Wait, hang on. Let me think on that.
I can think of a few. It's just like, okay, like for instance, the Date Night of Doom one that you have up right now.
Well, I'm flipping
not her fault. Werewolf thing, not her fault. The genie thing, not her fault. Split screen, she's not even in that.
Split screen, she's not in that. I haven't read What's My Age Again for a long time. I think that was her fault, but I don't remember. The unicorn one, not her fault. I don't think it is.
Oh yeah. What's My Age Again is her fault. But yeah, the unicorn one is not her fault. Actually, I would say more of these chapters are Cassie's fault than hers.
Huh. That's a good point.
That one's her fault.
Yeah, schizophrenia. Yeah, that was her fault. But
that was also the source of the only villain besides Xaos who ever came back.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to. We're talking about that in relation to something else that kind of is more oblivious. But yeah, what were we talking about?
Okay, we were just talking about Anne's weaknesses as a character, which it's not that she's unlikable. She's not. It's just
she's not. Well, it's not. She's not unlikable in that there's nothing to really hate.
Yeah, it's just she's dull.
Yeah, like honestly, it's.
And I don't know. Actually, in some ways, she is pretty unlikable, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, that relates to something that we're sort of building up to, but it's just like
if you're familiar with the Wotch, you know where we're going with this.
Yes. But that's just kind of a weird thing about her. Like she's not She's just not really interesting. Like, you ever hear the theory that Marmaduke's owner is Hitler?
It's like that. It's like
it's interesting because you made it up, but it's an interesting idea. But like you're making it up. It's not in the comic, so the comic can't really take credit for it. Like there's a theory that Anne is a lesbian, and that's kind of interesting, but there's nothing in the comic that really
bears it out.
No, if there's nothing I don't think there's even really that much that suggests it. I mean,
yeah, there was that. She seemed to be crushed on that football player.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but okay.
Remember the whole build-up to the Dolly art and all that?
And I remember the football player playing into that. I don't remember her crushing on.
I don't know. She just seemed to have like this awkward relationship with him, or I don't know. Maybe I was just reading into that. Actually, I'm pretty sure they went on a date or something.
Okay, I definitely don't remember that, but yeah, it's like
it might have just been something where Robin was like reading into it that way or something. I really don't remember.
Okay, yeah, it's been a while since I've read that part, but
around the Dolly arc was about where I stopped caring.
Yeah. I'd step around for a while after that, but yeah, there's a problem. Yeah, it's interesting only if you insert your own ideas.
Yes.
Not so much on its own.
I said it's not like in her standard interaction she's really that unlikable or anything. She does have her moments. It's just so often like I can't tell you anything about her. That's how she relates to other characters.
What's that thing that they say a lot in criticizing the Star Wars prequels? Like, describe Padme and without saying her job, what she looks like, who plays her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
the Chit Who Anakin things.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you try the same thing with, like, the characters from the first movie, like, describe Princess Leia without doing those things. Okay, she's very take charge. She has, she's headstrong and blah blah blah. Like you can go on about that, but with Padme you can't. And that's sort of the same thrum with Anne. Anne's just not that interesting.
Yeah, it's just like hard. Okay, if I had to tell you some personality traits of hers, she's kind of clumsy. She's oblivious. She seems to be easily surprised. That's about it.
She's headstrong.
Yeah. And yet, at any given time, she can suddenly turn into the most mature, level-headed person in the cast who's keeping everyone else in line.
Yeah, and honestly, like we said, like part of the strong things about the cast is that like, some of the group dynamics are really good. The thing is just that I'm going to draw the unicorn.
Yeah.
But the thing is just that the cast is the dynamics, which again for blues, like one of my favorite things about ensemble cast is the dynamics. I love a good cast dynamic. Like it's almost Gygacy in the term, but yeah. I love a good cast with group dynamics. A lot of my favorite stories, like Star Trek: The Next Generation, or the like, have great, or My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, have great group dynamics, and that's why I love them. And some of them work. Like Robin and Jason have a really good friendship, and you buy them as friends. But Anne, I don't think Anne really even fits in that well. Like it feels kind of forced sometimes. Like the way that
I can see it with her and Robin. Her and Jason don't feel like friends.
And they kind of don't.
Mm-hmm. Like, they feel like they have a mutual acquaintance and don't mind each other.
Yeah. Like, I don't really buy it so much.
Yeah. And while we're talking about Anne and Robin, this one, I'll give them credit, the creators realized it.
Oh, yeah. They don't work. You don't want to see them as a couple.
Yeah.
At all.
It's like, yeah. Like, they spent a lot of time building up to this eventual, like, hookup with them. You can tell the creators eventually realized nobody was interested in that.
Yeah,
because like, very, very suddenly, him and Robin and Cassie hooked up. Just abruptly. And, like, the Anne thing was dropped completely.
I don't think it was a drop completely. I think they sort of implied that Robin still had, like, some lingering things on her, but for the most part...
From what I've seen, he doesn't seem to, like, mention it after that chapter.
No, I think again, it's been like forever since I've read it, so I probably should have read it more thoroughly before we did this. But this was, I think we only decided to do this tonight.
Yeah, we were planning to do it at some point. We didn't know Wotch would be what we'd do next. It's just this was pretty much just last minute. Hey, you want to try doing another podcast tonight? Sure.
Yeah.
And overall, for being so last minute,
the first one was on New Year's Day. The first one was on Christmas Day, and now we're doing it on New Year's.
Yeah, week later, woo. This probably won't stay weekly, but...
No, there's shit that gets in the way, but yeah. Anyway,
we'll do it when we can and when we feel like it.
And okay, fucking enjoy it.
So with the whole Anne and Robin thing, it's hard to critique them on that much because they do realize it.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to look through a comic and you kind of find yourself struggling with that, just know that they eventually stop it.
Also know that it happens late.
Yeah. Like, the comic doesn't continue much further after that happens.
No.
Which the comic is still going. It's just, well, we can hold off on that. Let's move on into the next negative, which...
And a lot of you guys, if you're familiar with the comic, you're probably waiting for us to get into it. How do we even start
consequences.
This? I'm going to bring up the cover. Hold on. One of the things that kind of I think kind of worked in the comic's favor in building up the atmosphere and sort of the world is that as the comic goes on, like you can see changes happening, like not just to the main character,
and there are a lot of loose ends.
Yes, which like there's one professor. This is one of the bigger things is that there's a professor who accidentally, without not to Anne's knowledge, gets transformed mentally and physically into a teenage Japanese girl
with a Chinese name.
Yeah, and wearing the food.
I don't think that was on purpose on the author's part, but they covered for it.
Yeah, and he has no memory of his former life, and he's just living.
Yeah, has broken English, wearing a futu and all that.
And he's just like, and he has no memory of his former life, and he's just living as a foreign exchange student. And there are some, it's just stuff just keeps building up, and
yes, and also turns 4 football players into cheerleaders, which, if you're wondering if we're going to come back to that, probably.
We're probably going to touch on it here, but there's a lot of stuff to say about that. It relates to a spin-off and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that might be a separate one.
Yeah.
Okay, so consequences. See, here's the thing about the stuff Anne does. Not only is it not all not only is it not all consensual, it's not all reversed.
Yeah, because, okay, this is sort of the thing that you have to keep in mind, is that this is all being treated as it's very jokey.
Yeah. Like almost none of this is ever given any weight.
Like, I'm going to turn you into a girl. Ha, isn't it funny that you're a girl now? It's not goodbye. It's like...
Yeah. And sometimes it can get to really screwed up levels. Like, Robin made a legitimate mistake causing the whole myth thing, and... Anne turned him into something, just pretty much just felt like, well, you deserve to suffer for it.
That's really...
Like, even though he could not possibly have known that was going to happen.
Yeah, Anne, how much shit have you done by accident?
Yeah. Like, yeah, his was kind of a big scale threat, but the difference is he doesn't know about magic. You do.
For the part, we probably should have listed that chapter under positives, because that was a really good chapter.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that epilogue to it is stupid, but the actual chapter is really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So...
And the main thing that, again, in terms of playing this as for comedy, the main thing that keeps going is that just the town is oblivious to it, and they make a lot of jokes about that, which do get kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like you can.
Which again, that's kind of a Buffy thing.
Okay. Yeah. Because they did it because I think the trope name for that is based off. What was the name of the city? Sunnyville. Sunnyville. Yeah, it was called Sunnyville Syndrome, where, like, you can do anything and the townspeople will never catch on.
Yes. And... Okay. It said, a lot of the... Okay, how to put this? Where I said a lot of the transformations aren't consensual and aren't reversed, that mostly relates to a certain kind.
Yes. Again, a lot of the comic, like we said, a lot of the comic is just transgender, boy to girl.
Yeah. And specifically boy to girl. That's about all you ever see.
Yeah. Even transformations that are otherwise kind of interesting, like, Anne will turn, they're fighting a bad guy, and Anne will turn Robin into a harpy.
Like a martial artist or something, and just decide, like, oh, you're a girl while at it.
Yeah, like...
Just the cause.
Yeah. I'm going to turn you into Bruce Lee, except without a penis.
Yeah. Yeah, or, like, decide, like, anytime anything is done to Jason, just arbitrarily becomes a girl on top of it.
Yeah, it kind of works in that sense, because it's like it's kind of like a running gag, but it gets...
Yeah, and he's okay with it, but the being okay with it thing relates to how only one character seems to ever be bothered by being turned into a girl.
Yeah, it's actually and it's like, it's not just okay with it, it's kind of okay with it to, like, a creepy way.
Yeah, like there's honestly this very... It's kind of hard to miss the implication that just being a girl makes your life better.
Like, no, I mean, like, specifically with Jason, it's like, he takes, like, when he gets turned into a girl, like, he buys lingerie for himself and takes pictures of himself in the mirror in provocative poses. And I'm like, are you gonna, like, turn back... Are you gonna, like, keep these as a boy so you can jerk off to yourself?
Well, he does have a poster of himself on his wall.
Like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, this is creepy, man.
And saying, to be fair, in comics with similar setups, I've seen similar things happen. Like, that is not a...
I don't think that makes it any better.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, it's just like this certain level of desensitization to it has more than one person thought this was a good idea.
Why do you have posters of yourself as a female on your wall? Do you find yourself sexy? Like, when you really think about it, that is fucked up.
Yeah. And while on the subject, whether or not, just relating to that, whether or not we do abstract gender, if anybody wants to ask, probably depends on if it's still online or not. Though that might be too negative for me because I wouldn't have anything good to say about it.
There was actually related to other comics, there was actually a very good, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you or threw it to you, but there was actually a very interesting kind of deconstruction of the Wotch called The Good Witch, which was basically What's that?
No, go on.
It basically like took the same premise and just made her like the main girl was named Angel, and like it just took the same premise and just straight up turned her into a villain protagonist.
Yeah, and honestly, Anne could very easily be a villain with the same personality.
That kind of says how bland we find her.
Yeah, because I mean, like there is this thing to her where she has a certain vengeful streak, and she also does seem to be outright sexist.
Yeah, the sexist thing. I wanted to talk more about consequences before we went into that, so maybe we should get into that first.
Yeah, okay. We just wanted to lay the groundwork for what consequences is. Because,
yeah, and throughout the comic, like this, look at this cover. This cover is all of the stuff that she's been doing, all the boom, 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 messing around with people, which in fairness just kind of happens sometimes. It's not always her fault.
Yeah, like that centaur woman, she had nothing to do with.
Yeah, that's like really random. Like I don't even get why she's on the cover, but you might not even be able to see it. She's a centaur anyway. She's like in the shadows, but it's like it's all gonna come back. It's gonna bite her in the butt. Let's see what's gonna happen. And then throughout the comic, there's nothing.
Blows it. Yeah.
Like everyone is completely fine with everything that happens.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get through the easy ones first. Centaur woman, she's okay with it, and didn't have anything to do with either causing that or resolving it.
She's not really okay with it. It's just like she's living with it.
Yeah.
It's like if you can change it, fine, but if not, like okay. And it's not really Anne's fault anyway.
Yeah. I said, yeah, she had nothing to do with it. She had nothing to do with resolving it. So whatever.
It's just now there's a centaur woman.
The girl in the Green Lantern shirt and the guy next to her.
They were body
one
swapped.
of the other. Yes, and they're very uncomfortable characters.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Like just everything about them is off-putting because essentially the thing with it is, and I think they're only there to counter the whole gender thing, because they're really like the one example of somebody preferring to be a boy.
Yeah. The thing is, in a previous episode,
they both prefer it.
Yeah, in a previous episode, these two got their bodies switched, and so they wound up sort of messing around, and so they go to Anne and say like, we got our bodies switched, you bitch, and she's like, okay, you're fixed.
Yeah, just switches them back, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that was worth putting them on the cover.
Yeah, so then that leaves Maine, who we talked about, and the cheerleaders.
Okay, yeah. The professor that we mentioned, who was turned into a Japanese schoolgirl with no memory of his past self. In this chapter, he gets his memory back, and he's just like, I liked living as a Chinese girl much better.
Yeah, and I had no family and no friends anyway, so.
That's really fucking convenient. The fuck? Like, yeah. Okay, like you're just gonna give up your entire life? The acumen you probably worked for, like, what?
Yeah, and there was something like, well, I can sign like a resignation letter in my own name. It's like, this has to be several months later.
Like, how is there not like a missing persons report on you?
Yeah,
I guess you really don't have any family.
Honestly, the main thing does not feel like it was there to combat the whole sexism thing. It feels like it was there to combat racism. So you just had like this super stereotypical Japanese girl with a Chinese name, and then suddenly after that chapter, she's speaking proper English and wearing different clothes, and you have the name thing acknowledged in story. Like, Yeah, like, okay, to be fair, I guess, to Anne, the character, like, she does not come to that decision herself and is perfectly willing to turn him back.
Yeah.
But, for the comment,
there's a weird implication to this.
Yeah.
And it's just very strange.
It is, and then there are the cheerleaders.
This is going to be a bit of a weirder one. They had a if you don't know, they had a spin-off based on them, which we'll
probably talk about at some point.
There's some good stuff about it and some bad stuff about it, and there's
if you're wondering, its pros and cons are way different from Wotch's. It's not a rehash.
No, it was
the
its
comics
own.
are actually barely related.
Yeah, and it actually is fascinating and interesting and blah blah blah. But yeah.
Okay, so the cheerleaders. Essentially, okay, as guys, they were just arrogant, jock douchebags, whatever.
Flash Thompson in triplicate. Quadruplicate.
Yeah. And since in the meantime of this, the spinoff was already running before this chapter.
Yeah.
So, which kind of shows, because before this they never had personalities in the main comic, and yet suddenly they have established character traits.
Okay, but see, what happened was one of the four jock douchebags made some sexist comments at an evil version of Anne, which we'll discuss later. But actually, not that much later though. Don't worry, we keep saying that. But an evil version of Anne, and for punishment, she turned all of them into dudes, into chicks.
Yes. Yes. And with mostly no memory of their previous lives. Which the mostly is where this did get really screwed up, but hang with us, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So... Alright, so basically they see where in the time since they just went from being just generic douchebag jocks or whatever, one of them has become one of them's the kind but very articulate leader of the group and all this, who, how to put this, she's like a well-spoken intellectual kind of, but she's also very goofy and kind of out there.
Yeah.
And then you just have the one girl who's just she's Pinkie Pie.
Yeah, basically.
Let's see, and you have you have the spunky tomboy one who
Rainbow Dash.
Likes playing D&D on the side and all this, has these nerdy hobbies.
I'm an egghead.
Doesn't advertise them, but isn't ashamed of them or burying them, and will associate with people about it. And you have one who bakes and cleans and design and sews and just homemaker. And they do this thing. We're seeing this and seeing what good moods they're in from all this, showing off their hobbies. The characters decide without ever speaking to the four of them, because they don't remember anyway, that no, they're better off this way.
You don't get to make that decision.
Yes. They just decide, well, they're happy and they're showing off, previously buried hobbies and all that. It's okay, you clearly screwed with their heads.
Yeah, they say, what happened was, actually, I can probably, no, I gotta dig through this whole fucking chapter to find that part, but basically what happened was, supposedly, in being transformed, what happened was they became, there we go, it brought out aspects of the personalities that were buried.
Yeah, things they were ashamed of or reluctant to show because they were jock douchebag boys who had to keep with the macho appearance thing.
Yeah.
That raises a lot of questions, especially for the fact that they didn't bring this up to the girls at all and just decided, nope, just rolling with it.
Yeah.
And then...
Also, can we bring up the fact that, oh, no, you go. I get the feeling that...
No, what were you saying?
It'll be weird if I cut into this when you were about to segue, and then...
I was saying, okay, and then something in Cheer happened. which is namely the fact that one of the four remembers.
Yeah.
Which, okay, maybe you shouldn't hold it against a different comment written by a different author for that.
I'm sure they had to. No, maybe not. Because if Abe did something like that, he probably, we'd probably be pretty cool with it.
Yeah, it's just that paints that whole chapter in an even worse light, just because of the fact that it's that. Joe has expressed wanting to go back to normal, basically.
Yeah.
And the option was there, and they just didn't even present it.
Yeah.
That just paints it was already messed up before that, but no one of the characters knows it.
Yeah. And also there's I get this was kind of meant to be a joke at first, but there was one of the fans asked this was way before you could tell this was way before it was sinking in the consequences was going to have to be written, but one of the fans asked what about the jocks? Do their parents know that they're girls? And it showed a comic of just one of them coming home and their mother's oh, I always wanted a little girl. Ah, lovely.
Yes. And give it credit. Again, we're trying not to talk too much about cheer here, but you don't have to and talk about consequences.
Yeah.
To give it credit, cheer tries to smooth that over and actually explain why none of them noticed.
Yeah. And the comic does too. I mean, Wotch does too.
Yeah, it's just cheer actually put in actual effort to it. The reason Lee does not really notice because she has metric ton of siblings, which that doesn't really make sense, but whatever. And evidently she just has so many they wouldn't even notice one popping up out of nowhere and one disappearing. Yeah.
Whatever. We've got a dozen more.
Yeah. Alex, the reason for that is because her parents are very neglectful. Again, they have to be seriously neglectful for that. Sam's dad, he knows and just is okay with it.
He loves his daughter, his kid,
yeah.
And that actually was kind of nice. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, though it seems like it could be explored more because that's pretty horrifying. Imagine what it would be like for him. If that story were told from his perspective, that'd be a horror story.
True.
And I don't think Joe's parents were even explained.
No, we saw them in that Christmas thing, but that was it.
I know. But anyway. I guess since Joe remembers too, it's not that whole that big of a complication.
Actually, holy shit! In that Christmas thing, I'm remembering what her mom looked like. Her mom looked like Maude. She's Pinkie Pie. God damn it!
I do not remember this. Then, yeah, I do not remember this. But,
oh God, I'm bringing it up now. Hang on, keep talking. What are we going to talk about now?
So, just with consequences, the whole chapter is presented as that's it. Every mistake Anna's made, she's going to have to pay for it and have to face the consequences of her actions, all that. Except she doesn't for any of it.
No, she doesn't.
Every situation works out the same as it was before, basically, except for the one where she just reverses it without saying a word.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, just the chapter in general just has this thing with it where it feels like it was only there to address fan concerns without actually changing anything.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It didn't really want to admit the problems that were involved with it.
Yeah, in a certain sense, it seems like it was trying to argue against them, but it really didn't. It just kind of made the problem worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so... Alright, I suppose we should touch on cheer a little bit more just for some perspective here. We're not going to talk about it much just because it's a very separate comment and warrants its own review, as it were. Just cheer...
This wasn't it. There was some other little... They at one point did a flashback to all of them as kids, and the mom does kind of look like Ma, doesn't she?
Let me see.
Yeah,
sort of.
It's the expression.
Yeah. Then, so, with the...
Look,
Cheer,
folks, so you guys know, in about 5 minutes, Martin's, the phone for Martin is going to cut out, and he's going to have to call us back.
Yes, at least this time we'll actually be paying attention to it, so...
Well, the first couple of times, like, it didn't happen because of the time limit.
True. Okay, so... Essentially, okay, with Cheer, I think we covered kind of the issues with that. Just, I think it bears mentioning where Cheer comes from.
Yeah.
Like, just by comparison here. Cheer, okay, compared to how the Cheer girls were treated in Wotch, just pretty much just, oh, they're better off this way. Like, in Cheer, they completely gloss over the gender thing, mostly. Like, you can tell they kind of just try to bury it and just make them actual characters.
Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of the thing that Abe does a lot, where Abe can take, like, really minor background characters and give them a personality and a backstory, and he does it really well. That's one of the things I like about him.
Yeah, and that's something Cheer does, but Hall's basically the only thing established about those 4 girls after they were transformed, right?
Yeah.
Up until Cheer launched was one of them picked up the weretat.
Which never came back, by the way. I don't think it did.
Yeah, that actually did show up in Cheer a few times.
It showed up, but like it never came up, aside from implying that she had super strength.
Yeah.
And also, you know that she's like really, and the fact that she's like really has a giant ass appetite.
Yeah. So that was really the only, like, they're mostly unrelated comments, which makes it kind of fascinating. Because they are in the same continuity and have stuff impacting each other. It's just they don't feel like they're supposed to be related.
Yeah, they really don't.
Which I have seen Cheer described like it's written by somebody who recognizes all the flaws in Wotch and wants to use them but do it right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Cheer has its own flaws. Don't get us wrong here.
I think we're kind of treading on really being off topic on this. Yeah.
But yeah, well, I was just wanting to touch on briefly to compare how it was, like, how they were treated as basically just useless punchlines for the purposes of, like, oh, they're better off this way.
Yeah, and I think it was because of Cheer that they had to bring it back, because Cheer was, by bringing them into the spotlight, Cheer kind of rose a lot of questions.
Yeah, it really does.
Like, it makes you
start Cheer
stop and think,
like, stuff itself, but there's only so much it can do without Anne.
Yeah.
Should I go ahead and hang up and call back? You just kind of said in the, like, conclusions or something?
No, I'm not talking about conclusions. We only just grasped at the sexism. I just wanted to talk about.
Okay. Oh yeah, right, true.
Because I really want to go into that.
Okay, yes, please.
Because that's something that kind of weirded me out on this, and it's. You could interpret that Anne is sexist or not. Like, that's like, I could see that going either way. The comic really does come across as sexist.
Yeah, both ways.
Yeah, both ways, because it's like, on the one hand, like, women get I wouldn't quite say objectified, but like ogled a lot, which I don't really have a problem with in some points. Like, you know, oh, it's sexist that Samus has a bikini in the new Smash Brothers. It's sexist that I'm trying to think on something else.
Yeah, let's see. It's sexist that Wonder Woman doesn't wear pants. Something like that, you know?
Yeah, that was kind of where my mind was going too. But it's like, yeah, it's like it's not really dwelt on. Okay, it kind of is for. Well, no, you can't really say that. But it's not really like dwelt on. I mean, it's not like if they had given Samus Palutena's weird pole dance taunt, then yeah, it's kind of something, but not really. It's kind of just the way they're dressing. But like,
maybe if she only did it whenever she had that outfit on.
That'd be pretty weird. Oh, yeah. Oh, my taunts are suddenly shoving my ass in the air. What the hell?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I see where you're going with this. Like, okay, first off, let's talk about how they're sexist against the girls, but that might not be as immediately obvious. They seem to have this thing where just being the girl makes your life.
I think you've got 2, 1, 0, and yeah. Okay. He's going to call us back in a moment. And he's back, children.
Yeah, and it went out mid-0.
Neat.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like 2, 1, 0. Okay. So where I was going with on this though is they just depict it like being a girl just inherently makes you happier. Like girls just plain don't have problems.
Well, I kind of wanted to go on to the sexist against girls first because I was trying to.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
About like how they just portray it like girls just are so like girls are just like untroubled by the world to a degree that it just makes them look kind of airheaded.
Yeah, that kind of plays into why Anne comes off as weirdly oblivious to everything.
Yeah. This really isn't just her. Like I said, there's like the cheer thing where they just mention that because they're girls now, they're so much more outgoing and free spirited. And I don't know. It's just like that really goes both ways. It's just like there's this certain way about it. It doesn't help that there is a chapter of the French devoted entirely to turning people into blondes makes them idiots, or turning them into blonde women makes them idiots.
Yeah. And it is kind of weird. And again, like there is sort of a weird. I don't know if this was just in the fan servicey sort of way. They did kind of get ogled a bit.
Yeah, a lot of times it was pretty clear that like this was being done for you to stare at it.
Yeah. Which again, I kind of do sometimes, and I shouldn't bring that up. Not to nearly this extent.
It's just like, yeah, there's just this thing about it with, it's hard to describe how it's like sexist against girls unless you've read it. Like, it's just like the way they tend to be presented and stuff. It just like there seems to just be this thing that like girls just like can't process higher problems. You know, it's like guys are the only ones who have troubles in life, but they're also the only ones who can get things done.
Yeah.
Like how often Anne will just be like completely overwhelmed by something, and like Robin and Jason are like having come in and like offer the guy side.
In all fairness, I think that was kind of just done to make them look kind of interested, to make them have kind of a point, because I meant to bring this up when we were talking about negatives, and we're getting off topic. I'm sorry, but Anne is the only one of them that's actually useful in a crisis because she's the only one who knows magic.
Yeah, it's like the other two are useful only because she is able to make them useful.
Yeah, it's like when shit hits the fan, they're completely superfluous.
Yeah.
And I really honestly kind of hate shows.
Address that, but it really didn't.
Yeah. It's like I really hate shows that do that. Like, off the top of my head, I mentioned Star Trek: The Next Generation earlier. Counselor Troy's fucking useless.
Yeah.
She really is.
And that just like like I said, it's hard to describe what it's like with girls. Okay, here's one good example. Who
do you think I should draw next? Just name somebody.
What?
Just name somebody I can draw next. I'm going on for someone else.
Let's go minor character Wolf.
Okay, cool. You were saying?
Okay. One good example of the girl thing, right?
Yeah.
Being set in a high school with pretty large cast, okay, there's romance stuff. Alright. Just about any given couple has this thing where the girl's just kind of this little ditzy, cheerful, stand by your man kind of girl. Like, just, like, again, it's just hard to describe. Like, that girl with the tripping thing we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's just like she's an example of it. It's just like every couple you see is just like, as it relates to their relationship, there isn't really much of one outside of the girl is just kind of the eye candy to the guy. Like the only real counter example being the like gender swapped or the body swapped ones, which raise their own problem because the girl's the aggressive one, the one who like controls the relationship and all that, and she wants to be a boy.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna say I think I might disagree with you on kind of a weird point here, but I would argue that's not really. I would argue that you could say, yeah, it's because the girls are happier because they're kind of dumber, but I think it's kind of a minor point. I think that it comes off more like they're happier because they're just better.
Yeah, well, I think it goes both ways. I think, like, if you notice, there's just a certain tendency to just, like, if you become a girl, it just makes you more airheaded. But at the same time, they just play it as, like, so what? It's worth it. Those guys suck.
Yeah.
I just wanted to emphasize the girl thing first, but all.
Yeah, I wanted to emphasize that first too.
Yeah. Could you maybe phrase it better? Because I was kind of struggling to like put it in a word.
I'm sorry. It's just like if you're a girl, you're better. You just lose a couple of IQ points.
Yeah.
Because life is awesome, and you should do this as a girl.
And yeah, the guy stuff. If you listen to everything we said so far, you probably get the point.
Yeah, it's just the comic is very, very preoccupied with guy into girl, as in terms of transformation.
Yeah.
And
that ninja guy or whatever he is.
Kirk?
He's a good example for that. Like, what?
Kirk?
No, I'm talking about the guy who works under Xaos.
Oh yeah.
Okay. He's a good example of that. But in his guy form, he's all composed and calm and like not a fighter. Girl, he's like rabid and violent and like uncontrollable.
I don't think it was that he wasn't a fighter. It was just like he's just kind of like controlled and badass, like Mike or something.
Yeah. I don't think you ever actually see him fight in either form. It's just the way they talk about it.
Yeah, it's just like like Paulie didn't move fast, but that's because that's when you're as big as Paulie, you don't gotta move for nobody. That was a terrible Ray Liotta. Holy fuck.
Yeah. I don't know what you were talking about, but fair enough.
I was talking about it was Goodfellas.
Okay. I didn't. Another movie I haven't seen.
It's pretty good.
Okay, so just like the comic just kind of paints everybody in a bad light, and it's like it is one of the things where you really can't ignore it.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about it. It is kind of like a vague, like we're talking about like it's an implication, and it kind of is, but it's like an implication you can't. What's that?
It's just there's so much of it.
I know. It's like it keeps preying on your mind. Like I can't even think of a good other example of like a weird implication thing.
Yeah, it's not like it's just like, oh, this happens occasionally. It's like, no. This is constant.
Yeah.
Like, both ways of this are constant.
And again, and in terms of like, you mentioned like being a woman makes you airhead. Being a woman makes you kick fucking ass.
Yeah, the only decent fighters outside of Xaos that we never actually see fight are female.
Yeah, and
monsters. Female or monsters.
Yeah, and kicks ass. Some of the Cassie kicks ass. Miranda, who we'll probably talk. I don't know if we'll talk about her. Blah blah blah. But she kicks ass.
Sisters.
What's that?
The Chainsaw Sisters.
Oh yeah, the Chainsaw Sisters. The fuck else? Just like the genie girl. The genie girl, like, if you want to fight, you have to be a woman. And they, again...
You have to be either a woman or you have to be an evil man, and there are like two of those. Or you have to be a monster.
Yeah, and that's another thing that really kind of weirded me out. All of the villains in this story, with the exception of Evil Anne, and Dalit, who we'll probably talk about later, all of them are guys.
Yeah, on the Sexism thing, we need to turn it over to Dolly.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Like if you're a guy in kicks ass, you're evil.
Yeah, either that or you're a monster.
Yeah,
like the genie guy or the Eurocon, which are also both evil.
No, I'd say that the genie guy just counts as an evil guy because he's like Xaos, the unicorn, the genie boss. They're all
guys. The ninja guy never does anything.
Yeah, they're all guys, but they're also dicks. And like, and in fairness, like there were some guys in the rebellion who kick ass.
Yeah.
The pirate was the pirate and the penguin were really cool. Yeah. But at the same time, like time got spent for like those two leaders who were both women.
Yeah, and also it's like quite confusing. Like, even though like guys are the only ones who have it on the ball in terms of like managing the social life. Anything. If it comes to the battlefield, guys are useless.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like as tacticians too. It's just like no. If a plan needs to come up with by a girl.
Yeah, yeah. It's really kind of weird because again, when shit hits the wall, it's Anne, Robin, and Jason are fucking useless.
Yeah, or they're girls and they're useful.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. And this is one of the things that we want to talk about is that, like Consequences, the comics, the writers became slowly aware of this and they tried to rectify it. Which, and that was kind of the big point of the chapter called about Dolly.
Yeah. Which, we'll throw this out there, it's not as bad as Consequences. But...
I want to say right now, as bad, even though it wasn't as bad as... Why can't I not bring up the cover? What the fuck? Where's the cover? Did I pass it up? Oh, no. Oh, right. Yeah, they did this thing first. Yeah, like, look at how cool this cover is. Yeah. Like, I've been reading print comics for, like, most of my fucking life, and so I'm not bothered when you get a comic that has and the cover is not represented. But when the cover is better, like, the cover promises you a story that's better than what you get... I do legitimately get kind of pissed off.
Yeah, this cover is actually very misleading for what's actually in the chapter.
Like, it looks like Anne has been brainwashed by this cult, and Robin and Jason are being hunted by them. That is fucking...
And I thought the storyline was indicating, too. They were, like, trying to, like, suck her, or, like, being all nice to her, and, like, she was agreeing with their points, like, outright snapping at guys and stuff.
Yeah, I wanted... Like, this storyline looks really cool, because like we said, Jason and Robin are useless, and Anne is badass, and it would have been, like, a really nice twist, like seeing them having to overcome their unstoppable best friend.
And in the build-up, they seemed to be doing something where she was actively being sexist.
They hand-waved that.
Yeah, it's just, but in the build-up.
Yeah.
They were doing it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the chapter.
Yeah, the chapter is there's a group of like the kind of straw man feminist group, and in fairness, like before the chapter started, we had this.
Yeah, they were built up a lot.
Yeah, they were built up a lot, and we had this. I forgot how fan servicey this was, like a little political statement, like, yeah, it's not anything. I'm not making any sort of statement about any section of the feminist movement, and blah blah blah. There's no political statements. We're just trying to tell a good story. And I've got no problem with that because I think bravo.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, like you can write a story and it gets mistaken for political, and
Yeah, it's like okay, for instance, we're probably going to we probably won't devote pages to it. We'll probably be issuing similar working points because we do have political storylines planned.
Yeah, I don't know if I can even say that about what the main...
Well, I was keeping it vague. I was just saying if you've been reading Black Princess, I mean, we're not really trying to show our own stuff. We're just bringing it up for comparison's sake here.
Yeah, because again, Wotch has a very big influence on us. Like for Blue Blood Heroes, like I did a story about one of the villains of Blue Blood Heroes is a witch who uses her power to like sort of entrance a cult around herself, passing off her magic as miracles. And one thing that and maybe they are miracles, but we get into that later. But one thing, and I had to make it, and I made it very clear in one of the stories that I'm a Christian myself, and I wanted to make it very clear that I'm not really making any kind of statement about organized religion.
Yeah.
I'm very much in favor of the Catholic Church and all that stuff. And
like both of us in college we write have cults.
Yeah.
And so we're doing some political stuff. If you've been reading Black Princess, you can probably see where some of the political is coming. Because I've been laying the foundation for it a lot.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's nothing wrong with tackling something like that, just saying up front, no, this is not intended to send me for a message.
Yeah, like you can't be afraid of like people taking it the wrong way and not want to make a statement. I mean, like not just want to tell the story.
Yeah. But.
Yeah.
Do you want to handle this?
Oh yeah. Anyway, it's like the sort of straw feminist group who decide that they want to sort of enslave and or I don't know if they want to control or mass change men.
It seems like a little of both. It seems like both that and turning men into women.
Yeah, they had devised a gas that permanently transformed you, that permanently changed your gender, rather than just doing it temporarily, which again kind of twisted, kind of did do a nice twist on Anne's personality, like showing that maybe there aren't. This did not come that long after the consequences arc.
Yeah.
And so it's a twisted around saying like, yeah, maybe there are big consequences and maybe you should be aware of it.
And yet, whenever somebody got hit with this, they completely shrugged it off.
Well, they only got hit by only two people got hit by it, but basically, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, the people hit by it, though, just weren't even phased.
And also, both of the people who got hit by it were girls, but I guess given who created it, that's...
Yeah, well, they were obviously not from getting girls.
Yeah, anyway, yeah, it's permanent, but it only goes that way. I guess given the way it was presented, there was no other way that was going to happen. But yes, what was I? God damn it! There was a picture of Wolfie. I just know it. Okay, no, that'll do. No, I know where to go.
So they did this thing where, for a while, they've been building up this like anti-male sentiment growing at school and stuff, which wasn't really given a reason why it was forming, but it was there.
Yeah.
Which honestly, all that's probably part of the whole anti-female thing pretty well too. Just like it was handled pretty clumsily.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And that there was a group forming that was like of militant feminists.
Yes. And.
It turns out that it's being led by a woman named D.O.L.L.Y, who decided that she wants to en masse. I guess sort of Magneto the gender issue, either enslave men or transform them permanently into women. And her champion for the group would have been Anne, who would have been perfect as she was able to transform women, as she just loved transforming men into women.
And speaking of D.O.L.L.Y, just want to throw this out here. It's not really related. She was the most obvious twist in history.
Yeah, they played it up that she wasn't really the leader, but then it turned out that she was.
It was like she so totally was, just from the word go.
It was kind of arbitrary too. It was just like, no, I'm not the leader. She is.
Well, I mean,
oh wait, no, I am.
Whenever she was just showing up as a teacher, it was just still really obvious. It's like you're the leader of this thing.
Hello, children. I'm your new teacher, Miss D.O.L.L.Y. Yeah. It's like. Okay, are you teaching at Hogwarts or something?
Yeah.
Harry Potter did that a lot too.
Like more directly, she was doing the nice teacher thing, just like to such a degree with so much screen time. It's like there is no way you are not evil.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so getting back on topic here.
Anyway, yeah, she decides that she's going to keep Anne that she's going to make Anne into her champion. And it feels like a lot of this chapter was designed to sort of like counteract a lot of the things that we just brought up in terms of the sexism. Like this is a villain this is a female villain who is irredeemably evil, and she's trying to sort of twist Anne's own weird implied sexism against her, or use it for nefarious purposes. And there was just a sense that this was just trying to move past that.
Yes, but at the same time, like the chapter really didn't actually amount to that.
No.
Instead, it just how to put this? It kind of wound up reinforcing the same thing. It was just like the only person who was able to solve the problem was Anne.
Yeah, that is something that they also tried to fix, is that Jason started taking. Oh, okay. This sort of plays off into another thing. In relation to the fact that Robin and Jason were basically completely useless, in one of the earlier chapters, Robin was starting to realize that he was useless, and so in order to have more of a point to the comic, he was going to try and study magic himself. And when Anne found out, she got really, really angry. Is like,
yeah, she actually got like outright angry, like he would dare even attempt it.
Yeah, like what was the logic? Like, yeah. Which is a completely reasonable thing. Every time Martin picks up a pen and tries to draw something, I get into a crying fit.
But you must hate all those little loose pixels and things that fix and redraw stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just this weird. Like, okay, I get where at points they were trying to give Anne fault. It just, like, the story never really treated it as them.
I don't even think it was... No, you go on.
Yeah, and I don't think that one was supposed to be. I think because that led to that filler, I thought they were, like, transforming him out of revenge or something. It's just like, you didn't do anything wrong.
No. And like so to build on that, later he started trying to take karate lessons so he could fight better. And again, she had the same reaction in that chapter when she found out in D.O.L.L.Y. She's like,
and it's just like, what? Do you not think I can protect you?
Like, well, actually, I'd kind of like to protect myself. Actually, considering how serious a lot of these issues are, maybe I shouldn't be learning karate. Maybe I should be buying a gun.
Yeah, guns are useless in magic stories.
Only because they never appear. Like, why the fuck? I give Harry Potter a credit because gun control laws are way stricter. But if that were set in America, they would have just Bonnie and Clyde Voldemort.
Yeah, you shall be making it through the doorway till it's gunned down on the way in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just. Okay, and again, they did this thing where she just gets mad over him wanting to pet himself, and it's like it's a weird, like, consistent thing with her character.
No. In the D.O.L.L.Y. chapter, there's like they mention it. Like after she's walking away, like in a huff, she's like, "How dare he try to?" Oh wait, that's actually kind of reasonable.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like Robin gets a moment where like he punches someone in the face. Yeah. And doesn't save the day, but leaves it open for Anne to save the day.
And I don't think Jason actually did anything. Shocker. I actually cannot remember a time outside of the story I specifically devoted to him whenever Jason has contributed to anything.
Yeah, it was kind of he's very superfluous.
Yeah. And it turned out with the like sexism issues that Anne was like building up during the build-up. She wasn't really being sexist or having flaws. It was her evil anger manifestation building itself up inside of her to break out and take control of the group.
Yeah, and again, like that's the only other like evil villain besides Anne was. Yeah, the only like evil villain originally in the comic was the evil version of Anne, and then so they added like D.O.L.L.Y. so it could be like there was another evil villain, and also while she was fighting the members of D.O.L.L.Y., like she would transform them into guys. Yeah. Which I think is the first time she ever actually. No, she did it occasionally.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of, I don't know what. Read into this what you will, but it bears mentioning that they have a specific rule in place that Anne cannot be a guy. And it is, like, literally impossible.
Yeah.
Like, I know a filler or two did it, but outside of that, like, in the story, it's just the same of, like, you can't change Anne's gender.
Yeah, Which, assumingly, was also true for Xaos, because Xaos is like her male counterpart. Spoilers, but not really, because
does not hide that.
If you, I was gonna say because if you read the comic, you're not gonna care.
Yeah. Then what the comic hides is what they're the avatars of, which again that doesn't make spoilers, the woman who's constantly causing mayhem everywhere and turning people into stuff and basically just being incredibly selfish with her powers is powered by chaos.
And the guy whose name is Chaos, except not really because grammatically that makes no sense, is powered by order.
And also that's not even his name. His name's like Melee. He had a different name whenever he was good.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, he was the guy of order who took on that name. Yeah, go ahead and think about that. Anyway, I think we kind of covered everything there is to say about Wotch. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, It seemed like there was one or two more things I could have brought up in terms of the sexism, but I don't know. It seemed... and in terms of, like, how we were saying, like, they kept trying to sort of address some of the complaints, which I think is sincere. Like, they were sincerely trying to go for it. I mean, it just kind of felt... If anything, it felt insincere because they was still sort of being pointed out. One of the problems was that... one of the characters toward the very, very end of the comic, like I think barely before it kind of ground to a halt, was turned into a woman and actually really hated it. Like it was like misfile kind of. Like his whole life was just completely ruined.
Yeah, and it's... that's like the one case without being turned into a girl and actually having a problem with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a nice effort, but kind of too little, too late, you know.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like I do like that the comic is sort of is like it did at least make an effort to address concerns that people were having with it.
Yeah, and the comic also has this, I don't know. Did he have an comic track record? I just kept and we'll probably never know at this point. I kept expecting them to do something with it where it's just like, eventually he'd grow to love it as opposed to just being able to return to normal.
Yeah, that would not be very surprising.
Yeah, I don't know. Whenever I read through that prom chapter or whatever that was, like, okay, that one was a maybe not. I don't know if you saw a bit with that or what.
The wait, was that the disco one?
What?
Like the disco one?
Yeah.
I never read that one.
Okay, there's something in it where there's like this like mass gender change in the place or whatever, and he's aware of it. And everyone who's in the building at the time will be changed back, but for some reason he can't be there, or it will screw it up. So basically, he will be the only one who's returned to normal, and he like opted to pass on it just for like the good of people, but I had to like debate it.
Yeah, that sounds kind of stupid.
Yeah, so like that's one of those things where it's like, okay, if it leads to him eventually getting it back to that, fine. But even then, they kind of portray it as like borderline karmic that he gets this, but you're not shown really anything he did to deserve this outside of just wanting to know the truth.
Yeah, no, they don't really portray it as karmatic. It's like it's sort of he's transformed by a person who's kind of implied to just be wanting to do the right thing, but going about it in like too harsh of a manner.
Yeah.
And and this just implies that she is dangerous.
And speaking of it, outside of the transformation thing, it makes no sense that she'd go to that as a punishment, considering it was also a transformation thing, but she had a much more brutal way of dealing with the D.O.L.L.Y.
Yeah, again, it just kind of felt like it was there to address concerns.
Yeah. So, anyway, I guess to summarize on Wotch, I think that about sums it up.
I don't think there's much less to say.
Yeah, and we are doing pretty long. Okay, I think to summarize, it's like, know what you're getting into. It's like there's some good stuff there, but I can completely see why some people absolutely hate it.
Yes.
It's like, and it's a lot of it's hard to justify. Like even if you're inclined to.
Wotch does. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, if you have a stomach for it, like if you know what's coming and you can take it, then yeah, I'd give it a look. Just like be aware, you're probably never gonna see the main story blown off because how it's all but dead. But that's okay because the main story is the least interesting part of
it. Yeah. For my sum up, I say it does hold a certain place in my heart, and I think a lot of the criticism, and which I think we're not immune to, is just that it implies that the comic is transformation and nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's not. There's a lot. There's a lot to it.
The transformation thing is a lot of it, and it is often very superfluous.
Yeah.
But it's not the only thing the comic does.
Yeah, and what else it does is very good. I think that sounds kind of damning, but there is a lot of good stuff in it. And what was the Weezer symbol? Hang on.
It's basically.
Okay. Because I used to remember like, oh, she's a fan of Weezer. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see the difference. Okay. Anyway, there's a lot more to it than that, and it still holds a very kind of special place in my heart, like among webcomics that I've read, because again, it did show me that you don't have to be like 8-Bit Theater or like Bob and George or any of those comics that are just sort of tackle nerd subjects. You can tackle whatever you want. You can be, because at that point, I think I mostly just read video game webcomics, which
same here. That's not all I read at the time. I mean, around the same point, I started reading other story ones. Like I started with Venus Envy. Started with Anti-Hero for Hire. Through Venus Envy, I discovered Mythfile, just that kind of thing. But Wotch was kind of the first.
Yeah, it opened things up for me, and so it is special in that term for me, and I did really enjoy a lot of the stuff that was in it, and it kind of meant something, which I'm gonna go completely. I'm gonna to get into the weird gay thing that me and Martin have, like the first thing that we collaborated on as two workers was something was like a Wotch fanfic that we wrote.
Yeah, it's practice for fun between two.
Yeah. And shit. There was something. I was going to something here. It did say that you can move forward, and you can make better decisions, and you can tackle other subjects. You don't have to be like a webcomic. You can be more like a print comic, which is basically the driving thing for Blues.
Yeah, it's like, is it a perfect comic? God, no.
Oh, Christ.
Like, not even close.
No.
But, there's some good stuff there. It's like, if you know what you're getting into and you think you can take it, go ahead. Because there's good stuff there.
It's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff it does isn't really unique to it. But, there's some sentimental value there, whatever.
I think the flavor is kind of unique to it, because I've never seen another comic quite like this. Like we talked about, the kind of childish simplicity, the kind of the way things are handled. It feels very natural, and I feel like the flavor to it, I don't think has ever been copied, not to my knowledge.
There's one comic I can think of that kind of has a similar feel, but that's a rant for another day.
Yeah.
But, okay, I'll go ahead and mention it. But I don't. Like I said, I don't even know if this comic's still available to be read, so I don't know if we'd ever review it. And even then, I'd be so negative on it, I don't know if I'd want to.
AG?
Abstract. Huh?
Yeah, Abstract Gender. I didn't want to.
Yeah, Abstract Gender, yeah. It's just like, Abstract Gender was clearly made by a fan. Like, it had a lot of similar beats to it, very similar tone. Yeah, Abstract Gender is a good show of how to do this wrong. I mean, Abstract Gender was just, like off-putting and mean. Like, but okay, I'll hold off on going into more detail on that. But we're not talking about Abstract Gender.
Yeah. For the most part, we're going to try and keep it to comics that we have both positive and negative things to say about. But if you want to, I'll do that.
Okay. Well, for what it's worth, their site's not there. I'll still probably not having.
And like we can't go to their site.
Yeah. Then the site's no longer up.
Okay.
There's probably an archive of it somewhere. Whatever. Anyway, okay, so as for what we might do next, do you have anything in mind?
No. Maybe maybe Eerie Cutie / Ménage à Trois.
Maybe Dark for it.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. Like I said on the Misfile one, at some point I would like to do Venus Envy, but I don't.
I just got like a weird mental. I'm not gonna have anything to say on Gunnar Krieg Court because I don't actually play it, because I don't actually read it. I just got like a weird image of me for that comic, just doing like the Nostalgia Critic route and doing the whole thing as Profion. I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I'm saying, like I mentioned, and this is running into a similar problem. Like I mentioned on the last one, I would kind of like to do Venus Envy at some point, but I don't know if we ever will.
What was the hang up on that?
Well, one is the fact that you haven't read it.
Oh yeah.
And two, granted, it's pretty breezy to read. And two is just the fact that the Venus Envy is kind of, in some ways, it's a heavy topic. Like the comic itself isn't really that dark or violent a lot of times. Sometimes it is. But it's just like, not entirely sure how it's I can talk about like transgender issues as in depth as that is by a transgender author.
Oh yeah. There's actually a similar comic I've been meaning to get into called Rain. Hang on.
Yeah. So just what we do next is kind of hard to tell. We'll probably not decide on night of.
If you guys have like a bunch, yeah, because for a lot of the stuff that me and Martin do together, it's just like, hey, want to do this?
Yeah, which I don't know. We'll figure something out. It'll probably be another one of the comics that we've read at some point. Just that those are easier to get into right now. We'd rather get to stuff we have like sort of personal attachment to first.
Yeah. Because like as is obvious, we have a lot of personal attachment to this.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the next one might be Eerie Cuties, but I'm not sure on that.
Because we have a lot to say about Eerie Cuties.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Is stuff we both read, and I read more content out of that.
Yeah. Also, the funny part is, by the time we actually do it, they probably still won't have updated.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Talking about this really makes me want to advertise our own comics more. Like I really I'm obviously I'm a petty man. I get jealous. Like, why don't we get more readers?
Yeah, it's like I said on the.
Why are we so shit?
What video at the end? It's like, yeah, you know what? Okay, we're doing this for fun mostly, but if we get some attention from it, we're not complaining. If we just want you to read our comics, we consider it a success. We'd love it if y'all read it, even if you told us it sucked.
We're that desperate for attention.
Yeah. The point is, at the end of the day, I'm sure many other authors are the same way. Yeah. Just give it some attention.
Please.
Although, like I said on the Misfile one, something that's just outright widely considered just completely awful and has no redeeming qualities like Sonichu, it's never going to happen. No,
we're not going to talk about Sonichu. There are a couple of comics that I can think of that I've read that I have nothing good to say about. I don't really intend on doing any sort of reviews for that.
Yeah, there's one that comes to mind where it's like, I think it'd be interesting to do, but I know Adam would not be up for it, so it's probably not going to happen.
Oh no, I would be like hoarse by the time we finish that comic. Yeah. Like, I would legitimately be shouting.
I wonder if we should provide any hints or just leave it made.
I can't think of any hints that I could drop that wouldn't make it completely obvious.
Yeah.
It's the guy who does it is very popular. He has a very big fan base.
I was going to throw one out and try to make it really obvious.
Yeah. I think we're probably thinking of the same hint too. It involves the show. I think we're probably thinking of the same hint too. It involves that show that we both watch.
No, actually I was just thinking of Con.
Yeah. You can tell me later. I think we're tapped out here because we're just talking about random shit.
Okay. Anyway, to reiterate that right second episode, or to reiterate from the beginning, that right second episode of the Webcomicast. I'm Martin.
I'm Adam.
Yeah, and we hope you have a happy 2015.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much for listening.
Reader comment.